I heard a good story, one of tragedy, death, and what was left behind. Through different mouths and different takes, I heard about a bridge that by day was just as any bridge, but by night was a stage for the reenactment of the past. Elizabeth Taylor and Tom Jones were lynched on a cold March night years ago on this bridge, and now they supposedly haunt it. The yells of a female are said to be heard on certain nights, and some people have even claimed to hear the lynching take place. The struggle, the gunshot, the scattering hooves, and the inevitable silence. I don't know if you believe in that. I know I was very skeptical. But rather than believe in the myth blindly, or write it off completely, I decided I needed to do some research and some fieldwork of my own. And this is what I found. The original Spring Ranch was founded in about 1863. The ranch was burned in 1864 when Lakota Sioux and their allies attacked settlements along the Little Blue. In 1886, the town site moved across the river, where the St. Joseph and the Grand Island Railroad was being built. The village once boasted several businesses and a population of about 100, but few traces remain today. In 1885, Spring Ranch residents Elizabeth Taylor and her brother Thomas Jones were accused of barn burning and murder. Before they could be tried, they were lynched by a mob on March 15th. Taylor and Jones, along with other early settlers, are buried in the Spring Ranch Cemetery. My questions were, why were Elizabeth Taylor and Tom Jones lynched? What actually happened on the night of March 15th, 1885? And is this bridge actually haunted? Elizabeth Taylor was no ordinary housewife. She was always working on the farm, was never afraid to own property, and when her husband's back started to give out, she gained property through the Married Woman's Property Act, having him sign over the property rights to her, putting her in control of the entire farm. Taylor and her brother were constantly causing controversy in the village. People suspected them of barn burning and even murder. The first suspected murder was of one of her ranch hands, Ben Bethlemer. The second suspected murder was of her husband. She was seen buying Paris Green, a potato pesticide, not long before her husband's death. One day, he started to complain of stomach pain and ended up riding his horse down a gulch into a river, where he fell off and was pronounced dead by a fisherman on the scene. There was talk all around town blaming Elizabeth Taylor for her husband's death, and after this, she received full ownership of the land. Disputes were still high with her neighbor, and talk around town made her feel threatened, so she went out and bought a shotgun. Everyone else in town owned a rifle. Then, one day, a dispute turned deadly. Her neighbor Edwin Roberts was taking timber from Taylor's property, something Taylor had complained about in the past. Today, this timber cost the neighbor his head. Some accounts say that Taylor herself was seen fleeing the scene, and others say she sent her sons with a shotgun to do the job for her. One thing was for sure, the fatal wound was definitely from a shotgun. Not long after the incident, a vigilante group of around 50 to 70 men met at the bridge to discuss what to do about this. They were unwilling to wait for a trial and believed that even if they did have one, justice wouldn't be served, so they decided to take the law into their own hands. A week or so after the vigilante meeting, 15 men met up, including Texas Bill Foster, Nelson Celery, N.C. Clark, Luther Wiggins, and a man called Farrow. They intended to carry out a plan. They approached the home in the dark of night and called out 3 times, but no one came outside. They threatened to ignite some dynamite if no one came out, so eventually, Elizabeth Taylor and Tom Jones both exited the home. Elizabeth Taylor admitted to hiring someone to burn another man's barn, but did not confess to the killing. The group of men ignored this and dragged the two to the bridge, where they stood them on their own horses, tied nooses around their necks, and fired a gun, which is said to be Elizabeth Taylor's shotgun, scaring the horses and causing the man and the woman to dangle from the bridge. Several hours later, a goose hunter found the two hanging and reported to the police. No one was ever convicted in the case. With the whole history played out in front of me, my questions were answered, and I was better able to understand the haunting. Upon my visit to what was left of Spring Ranch, the bridge, and the cemetery, I found nothing to be as alarming as what the stories had led me to believe it would be. But there are always some eerie feelings to be felt when you're standing in a place where lives have been taken. It's one thing to stand 6 feet above dead people who lay beneath the ground, but it's another to be standing where you know they were killed. I don't know if Elizabeth Taylor and Tom Jones were really as bad as the townspeople believed, or if she really killed her husband, but the truth is no one does, except for her. We know she was a very strong-willed woman of her time, but how far would she really go for power? I don't believe in ghosts, and nothing that I found has changed that belief. But maybe she really does haunt the bridge. Maybe she's angry at being wrongly slain, and will haunt out of revenge until justice is served. Maybe she's angry for having to answer for her crimes. The information is out there for everyone, and maybe you'll find a different outcome.